Okay, welcome, Therese. I'm very happy to have you here. Um, Please introduce yourself and tell us how you discovered TRE.
Okay. Thanks. Really nice to be here with you, Ildiko. I am Therese Bassler. I'm joining this interview from the ancestral territories of the Wasanich and Lekwungen peoples on what is now known as Vancouver Island, and in Canada. I practice here as a mentor, mover, maker. So TRE is part of my offering of services to clients and in a lot of pro bono work that I do as well.
And
And
what? Sorry.
and the way I came to TRE is in 2017 I started taking a group class in Newfoundland where I lived at the time that was called neurogenic yoga. And it really was this practice. It was tremoring. Just before the pandemic started, I moved from Newfoundland out to Western Canada. And here in Victoria, where I live, I couldn't find anybody who did this practice. The pandemic was upon us, and I said, whoa, the world is going to need tools like this. And the nearest provider I could find was an island away. And I said, what are you doing? And now, as restrictions come, and she said, this guy, Alex, has begun to host online TRE every day of the week, and anybody who knows the practice is welcome to join. So that's how I found Alex and Redbeard. And within a few months, I really felt a resonance with Alex's style and approach to sharing this. I also admired um, the initiative of just stepping up and giving with this. And so when he announced that he and Ellen were going to be co-leading one of the earliest cohorts of training online, I contacted him and I said, I'm in. And at that time, the structures here in Canada were intending to get back to residential certification programs. And that didn't happen. They eventually moved online. So there was a space in 2020 when Alex and Ellen's early online offering was just a perfect fit for me.
And did you have any doubts or fears before you were signing up for the certification training? Because I would imagine it is quite a big step, right?
Um, I I wouldn't call them doubts and fears. I'm a fairly self-confident person. um, what I can say is that it was more of an identity question. I had always thought of myself, I'm a coach, I'm a professional, I've been an executive, I work from here. And
Yeah.
I was always a person who went to the yoga classes and the meditation retreat and the Pilates. I didn't see myself in the front of the room, if you
Mhm.
will. So I didn't see myself as having an offering that was more body based.
Mhm.
So this was an identity shift I had to take on.
Mhm.
And so it was more that, is this really me? I had no doubt about the professionalism. I'd already seen it in the instruction. And I also felt very, very sure that adding a professional credential like this during the pandemic made total sense for me as a professional who wanted to do something meaningful. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. And how was your experience taking the course? So you said you went through this like almost like change in identity, and you became a body worker in a way. So how was that experience for you?
Well, I would say the course was a deep dive.
Mm.
Um, Unlike some of my colleagues who might have come to the course as a massage therapist or a physiotherapist, the study of the body and the neurophysiology of trauma and TRE um, was new for me. You know, I'd done a lot of reading, but you know, a whole weekend really drilling down into the polyvagal theory was something new and intense. I really appreciated the 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 practice, both guiding my colleagues in the course, and also being supervised, if you will, both as a practice provider, but also when Alex followed my TRE. So there's the opportunity to learn more about yourself as a practitioner of the practice. That's an intense part of this. So there were many layers to the experience. I did also I answered a question for myself: is there such a thing as too much tremoring? And I think one of the weekend modules, I was tremoring 6 times, and I found that was, you know, that was kind of my max.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
it was quite intense. But overall, I found the experience just, it was a big part of the first year of COVID for me, was this incredible learning curve and engaging with so many practice clients. I was already in a way doing some good through my practice, you know, my practice leading of others. So for me, it was absolutely a learning curve to remember.
Mm-hmm. And what was one benefit that you experienced for yourself when you started to have a regular tremoring practice? What did you
Well,
notice?
I'd had a regular tremoring practice since
Mhm.
2017, and I would say one of the first things that struck me back then was I'm a potter. So I noticed that after I went to a tremoring class and I went back to my studio, there was something um, wonderful that happened as I sat down to the wheel. I could actually sense this kind of clear, clean kind of channel between my hands, the clay, my mind. There wasn't clutter or distraction, and I just felt um, nicely connected, and I think my work was better. And if I fast forward that, I'm now designing work for artists and artisans around exploring that clarity that comes
Mhm.
with nervous system regulation or regular practice, and so that's been a really joyful thread. I think on a really personal level, what I've also noticed over time, and I think this got a boost from being a provider. I noticed it more after learning, certifying, and sharing a lot, is that it's made me more skillful in my interactions with others. I
Mhm.
think I'm in
Mhm.
the past, I might have been the person in the room. If someone's talking about a really difficult time, um, or a trauma that they've experienced, I think there's a part of us sometimes that wants to just leave the room in a
Yeah.
way, or
Yeah.
quickly say the right thing
Mhm.
and maybe move the conversation onward. And I think now, with this capability more developed for me, I'm not that person anymore. I'm the person who can sit with this more skillfully, and so that's made an enormous difference in the one-on-one work I do with clients that's conversationally based. And it's also made a huge difference in my family.
Mhm.
So when everyone cares about what's happening to a person in the family, but it's uncomfortable to discuss, I think I'm now more likely to be a person who can be with that, you know, with that pain and discomfort. And that's that's a life skill that I will have, you know, whether I'm in a client situation or with family. So to me, that's an unexpected huge benefit.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. I can certainly relate to that. Like, I think like embodiment is kind of a superpower in so many ways, and people are
Absolutely.
often not aware of like how deep it really goes. Um, but yeah, there is something that just like wakes up in you when you get in touch with your body on a very deep level, and people respond to it. It's just something that's like in your energy, or that's like very like on a gut level, and it is so powerful, and you just have this like clarity, and you are so connected to your intuition, and you're just tapped into yourself. And I think there's like no amount of like mindset work or like talk therapy, or like all of these things, they just don't touch like that level of depth, and that's like a very beautiful thing also when it comes to creativity. Yeah, it is a superpower, and it makes also I think it makes you very strong and resilient, and also autonomous in a way, because you can regulate yourself, and that's really powerful.
Well, I think that's so right,
Mm.
so beautifully said. And I actually had one client say to me, I like how you walk through the world.
Yeah,
And
that's
and
it. Yeah.
this is after I've, you know, brought this into the work that I do. And I was inspired by that. And now I ask myself, so how do you want to walk through the world when I'm
Mm.
approaching a situation? And the answer is with all of this, right? So I still want to be strong in conversation. I want to be a truth teller as a as a mentor to others. I
Mhm.
want to have compassion. I want to be wise from all my capacities, including still from the cortex or my head.
Mhm.
At the same time, this has been it's been like a new dimension to how I can show up, and so I'm super glad that I did it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. How has your like your business changed as a result of you becoming a TRE provider?
I had to, well, initially, I had a lot of interest in TRE only sessions.
Mhm.
And so I had to increase my administrative capacity to book clients for that and also hold classes. So I ramped up my administration to be more like I called it a virtual studio because a lot of my work was online. And what I discovered after almost 2 years of doing that was that hadn't completely integrated the TRE or the tremoring aspect into what I really did. So last year, I had to take a dose of my own medicine, I
Mhm.
suppose, and do a deep reflection on who I was and what I was offering in the world, and better integrate these things. And of course, there was my artistic work as well. So I had a couple of lines of business, and it actually became a bit odd. And someone who'd known me for a long time said, "With this new work, I think you're into about your fifth reinvention." And
Yeah.
and from that I could tell I wasn't integrated as a service. It felt as though there were all these different kind of departments. And I'm one person, and at this stage of career, I'm a solopreneur and not looking to expand a team. So I had to do more work on the integration of that service. And so through a quite conscious process in 2022, I I realized that I was putting out to the world the different credentials I had from training as a coach, as a TRE provider, as a potter, or clay artist or whatever one is called. And I had to actually put those titles aside and really look at how this all fits together. And that's where I came to this realization that my service is as a mentor, a mover, and a maker. And now
Mm.
you might see that mentor is kind of the coach part and mover is TRE and makers maybe the pots. But that's not how I see it. I see that to the mentoring, I can bring a somatic dimension. So if we're in a conversation and we're getting stuck or you're feeling stuck, I can say, you know what? Let's just go into the body.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we can even leave conversation for part of a session or for a couple of sessions for a period, or someone can drop in to, a group practice that I'm doing. Um, as a mover, oh yes, I support movement, and I've always supported movement to the next level,
Mm.
supporting someone in their lives or an organization going to that level. So that's also resonant with the different work that I do. And then as a maker, I'm really happy, Ildiko, to design a perfect introductory session for you. Or if there's, a family session or perhaps a group of women friends who want to experience this, maybe they're a book club, but I
Mm.
do a
Yeah.
lot of bespoke design, which includes tremoring, but nested in an experience that feels as though you or the group that you're part of is seen and valued and heard. It's not just that I'm delivering you a kind of textbook experience
Mm.
of this practice.
Mm.
So that makes me feel, that integration makes me feel like I've really brought TRE into I would say the superpower of the service that I offer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the TRE brought a kind of, it was almost a positive system overload because it's one more different thing that was in my toolkit, and it kind of forced me to figure this out. So now I'm in a nice place in the integrated service that I deliver.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I also loved that you have like this community aspect within TRE, which is probably makes it way more powerful than if it's like in a one-on-one setting, I would imagine. Yeah. What would you tell someone who is considering taking the Red Beard TRE certification training?
Um, I would say you're in good hands professionally. Um, uh, both Alan and sorry, excuse me, both Alex and Ellen um, are competent, committed, deeply experienced and skilled, and care a lot about the participants. So in that sense, you're in good hands. Um, for anyone who is approaching the certification path, I think I would say begin already to figure out what who who you intend to be as a certified TRE provider, what this will likely mean for your business or your practice. And I would say that the further away you feel from body work, if we're just going to use or somatic therapy as your core profession, the more work you might need to do. So in my background in training, as we discussed, this was a bigger stretch for me. And so I had work to do to integrate that. And and one of the things that isn't really core to the TRE provider curriculum is this figuring out who you are with it.
Right.
What I appreciate, it's not, I mean, you've
Mm.
got your certification and you feel great, you've done your practice hours, and then you have to make meaning of it. And that path is very individual for everyone who comes out of the training. What I appreciated about the Red Beard course is that um, Alex let me pursue these questions especially in our one-on-one mentoring. And so from the very practical level, how do I need to think about liability? I'm going to need a different kind of an intake process for clients. These are things that are quite natural to body workers, and they were new aspects of my practice. So I would say already get going on those things if you're about to embark on training, and maybe that means a business coach
Mhm.
works alongside uh, works alongside you in this experience. But know what it's going to offer, and plan for plan for an identity shift.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing about your journey, Therese. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.